Part 178. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1771. I turned to look at Xiaohei and asked, "Can you still hold on?" Xiaohei struggled to stand up and said to me, "Hold on. Now the threat of Suianzi to me is gone. Next, it will be my unilateral battle with Emperor Fendu. However, I have to be alert to potential threats. The potential threats are the gods of the underworld such as Yama of the 10th Hall. They were probably afraid of the power of the 9 Nether Yinju formation, so they hid. Facing Emperor Fendu, I have a good chance of winning. After all, I have the magic whip to fight again. If Emperor Fendu loses, they will definitely attack secretly." I jumped on Xiaohei's back. Xiaohei flapped his wings and rushed towards Emperor Fendu. Emperor Fendu was no longer able to control the 9 Nether Yinju formation. Now he can only confront me head-on. Moreover, the cost of operating such a heaven-defying formation is huge. I estimate that the strength of Emperor Fendu must have declined now. The entire Fendu city was shrouded in dragon energy. Dragon Qi is originally the awe-inspiring righteousness of Xiang, and has a natural suppression of yin and evil things. So, this is my home court. Xiaohei flew to Emperor Fendu. Without any hesitation, I squeezed the art with one hand and used the 9 layers of thunder art. Blue thunder and lightning instantly lingered around the Jingxiao sword. My face froze, and I struck out with the sword without any hesitation. Thunder and lightning raged, heading towards Emperor Fendu. Emperor Fendu looked at the lightning that was speeding towards him without any panic in his eyes. He slowly took a step forward, and immediately after, the yin energy around him surged. A huge figure slowly gathered behind Emperor Fendu. I looked towards that figure, and it turned out to be the soul of Emperor Fendu. Emperor Fendu Yuanshen slowly raised his right palm and pushed forward gently. In an instant, a powerful yin qi came over. The yin qi directly offsets the 9 layers of thunder technique. In addition, this powerful yin qi directly knocked me and Xiaohei away. My throat felt fishy and sweet, and the blood kept rising and falling in my throat. I resisted the urge to vomit and swallowed the blood. Emperor Fendu really deserves his reputation. If I were to face Emperor Fendu before, I'm afraid I would die miserably. I took a deep breath, made some tricks with my hands, and controlled the 8 golden dragons over Fendu city. Not only that, I directly unlocked the 10 spiritual vein seals, and the raging dragon energy rushed through my body. I released the dragon energy and condensed it into a golden dragon. Just like that, the 9 golden dragons attacked Emperor Fendu. Emperor Fendu manipulated his soul to fight with these 9 golden dragons. Although Emperor Fendu is strong, I'm not jealous. After all, these 9 golden dragons are made of dragon energy. I see that Emperor Fendu must find a way to completely suppress it. Just when I was thinking about how to suppress Emperor Fendu, several more figures were approaching in the sky not far away. These figures were extremely fast and arrived at the side of Emperor Fendu in the blink of an eye. I looked closely and saw that it was Yama of the 10 palaces, the Ghost Emperor of the 4 directions, the 3 great judges, and the 6 cases of meritorious officers. With the help of these gods, Emperor Fendu instantly overcame the dilemma and joined forces to destroy the golden dragon condensed by the 9 dragons' energy. My expression suddenly became extremely serious. Emperor Fendu led the gods of the underworld to stand opposite me. "Lu Su, you have no chance," Emperor Fendu said coldly. I looked at Emperor Fendu and the gods of the underworld with a sneer on their lips, and said, "Who said I don't have a chance? Have you forgotten that I can use this formation?" End of chapter. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1772. Emperor Fendu's expression condensed and he asked, "Formation? What formation?" I sneered and said, "It seems that your information is not that well informed." As I spoke, I picked up the magic formula. Emperor Fengdu stared at me, his eyes full of solemnity. As I kneaded the hand and recited the incantation, the sword box on my back trembled slightly. This is... Emperor Fengdu's pupils trembled slightly. Before he finished speaking, the sword box suddenly opened. Immediately afterwards, the dazzling sword light burst out from the sword box. The next second, 4 divine swords flew directly out of the sword box. The 4 divine swords turned into 4 rays of white light in the air, attacking in the 4 directions of Fengdu City: southeast, northwest, and northwest. 4 rays of white light illuminated the entire Feng, like daylight. After the 4 divine swords were returned to their positions, a tyrannical force burst out from the 4 directions of east, west, north, and south. The whole world seems to be trembling because of this power. I knead the formula with both hands and mutter something in my mouth. A huge magic circle spread out around me with me as the center. In the blink of an eye, the Xuxian sword formation enveloped the entire Fengdu city. Emperor Fengdu was shocked when he saw this scene. The immortal killing formation. Emperor Fengdu shouted with a trembling voice. I slowly exhaled a breath of turbid air, the profound energy in my body was flowing away rapidly. I looked at Emperor Fengdu coldly. You counted all the traps, but you didn't count that I had mastered the immortal killing formation. Today, I will make all the great gods of your underworld fall here in this immortal killing formation. My voice is not loud, but it travels far. Emperor Fengdu turned around and shouted to the gods, including Yama of the 10th palace, find a way to break the formation. I sneered. Break the formation? How ridiculous. The Xuxian sword formation unfolds. Below the saint, there is nowhere to hide. Above the saint, everyone will either die or be injured. I stretched out my hand and shook it into the void. The power of the 4 divine swords skyrocketed. 4 powerful forces condensed in my hands. A long sword that was almost illusory and transparent appeared in my hand. The attack methods of the immortal killing formation are unpredictable and there is no trace at all. The immortal killing formation encountered before in the land of the meteor god did not exert its full strength. As for why he did not exert his full strength, the reason is actually very simple. That is the lack of a point guard. Now I am the one controlling the formation, and coupled with the dragon energy of the 99 dragon veins in my body and the power of yin and yang, I am enough to control this power that destroys the world. I slowly exhaled a breath. Without any hesitation, he swung his sword towards Emperor Fengdu. Swing out the long sword in your hand. The sword energy condensed in the air, and the shadow of a huge, translucent long sword emitting white light struck towards Emperor Fengdu. All of a sudden, the earth is shaking. The air trembles. Time seems to have stopped because of my sword. Space was even torn apart by this. Emperor Fengdu looked shocked and turned around suddenly to use his soul to resist. The palms of Emperor Fengdu's Yuan Shen pushed out and collided with the phantom of the long sword. Just the mere contact caused Emperor Fengdu to spit out a mouthful of blood. The 10 palaces of Yama, the 3 great judges, the ghost emperors of the 4 directions, when the gods saw this, they quickly took action to resist together. In an instant, the yin qi in the immortal killing formation surged. I frowned and let out a light chuckle, and the immortal killing formation began to operate. The power of the phantom of the long sword becomes even more terrifying. Under the collision of sword energy and yin energy. Just listen to the sound of touching. Sword energy and yin energy exploded. The entire world was enveloped in dazzling white light. When the white light dissipated, I looked around and saw no sign of Emperor Fengdu, Yama of the 10 palaces and other gods. End of chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1773. Lost your soul? Probably not. Although the power of the immortal killing formation is powerful. But I also kept a backup plan. I cannot kill all the gods such as Emperor Fendu. Because I want to include their souls in the list of gods. Then send their souls to reincarnation. I looked towards Fendu city and saw Emperor Fendu, Yama of the 10 palaces and other gods lying on the ground in confusion. I let Xiaohe land. Xiaohe landed, and I jumped directly off Xiaohe's back. Emperor Fendu, Yama of the 10th hall and other gods saw me coming down and struggled to stand up. They were covered in wounds, their breathing was shaky, and they were obviously seriously injured. As soon as I landed, countless Yin soldiers and Yin generals hidden in the dark came out and directly surrounded me. I waved my hand casually, and countless long swords appeared out of thin air. My face condensed, and in the next second, countless long swords were suspended in front of the necks of Emperor Fendu and Yama of the 10th palace, with the sharp sword tips pressed against their throats. Of course, the same is true for every Yin soldier and Yin general. Lu Su, you win. Emperor Fendu said to me in a hoarse voice. I looked at Emperor Fendu coldly. From the moment you decided to capture the people closest to me, you were doomed to fail. Emperor Fendu smiled bitterly and said nothing. At this time, King Chu Jiang's right hand moved slightly. Although King Chu Jiang's movements were very light, I still captured them accurately. I frowned, and the long sword that was at King Chu Jiang's throat suddenly moved forward a little. Don't move, someone will die. I said coldly. King Chu Jiang gave up his little trick. I waved my hand casually, and the list of gods spread out beside me. I'll give you a chance to sacrifice your soul. If you don't, you will end up in ashes. I threatened the gods. King Qin Guang said coldly to me, Lu Su, if you kill us, the underworld will fall into chaos, and the whole world will be out of balance. All kinds of monsters will come to the world. I don't think you want to see it either. Does this happen? I sneered and replied, I really don't want to see this happen, but your lives are in my hands. Whether I kill you or keep you, the entire underworld will be under my control. As long as I am alive, yin and yang will not be out of balance, and I can completely assist a new king of hell to take office. King Qin Guang was speechless for a moment. I looked around coldly. The Yin soldiers and generals around him had their swords pressed against their throats and did not dare to move. I circulated the profound energy in my body and raised my voice several times. Listen. My voice exploded over Fengdu city like thunder from the sky. God has been defeated, and I will be the ruler of the underworld. There are only two paths before you. The first rule is to resist and your soul will be destroyed. Principle 2. Surrender and listen to my orders. The entire underworld's Yin soldiers should have gathered in Fengdu city. These Yin soldiers and Yin generals are an important part of the underworld and cannot all be destroyed. After I said these few words, all the underworld soldiers and generals fell silent. After a while, they dropped their weapons and knelt down towards me. Greetings to the Emperor. The Yin soldiers and Yin generals shouted in unison with respectful voices. I breathed a long sigh of relief when I saw this scene. If these evil soldiers and generals are unwilling to surrender, I can only kill them all. If this happens, I will be entangled in evil obstacles, and such evil obstacles will definitely make me suffer punishment in the future. End of chapter. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1774. Emperor Fengdu's face turned extremely ugly when he saw that his evil soldiers had turned against him before the battle. I turned to look at Emperor Fengdu and other gods, and said, You are in doom and gloom. If you want to survive, you have to do as I say. As long as you voluntarily give up your soul, I won't make things difficult for you. Not only will I not embarrass you, I will also retain your status as gods. You are still the gods of the underworld. Emperor Fengdu looked at me and asked, Lu Su, what exactly do you want to do? You will know what I want to do later. I was too lazy to talk nonsense with them and said directly, I will only give you 1 minute to think about it. After 1 minute, you must give me an answer. Having said that, I won't say anything more and will wait patiently for 1 minute to come. Time passed by minute, and soon, a minute passed. Everyone, how are you thinking? Emperor Fengdu looked at me with vicious and resentful eyes and said, Lu Su, are you going to send us to reincarnation? I was slightly startled, not expecting that Emperor Fengdu would guess what I was thinking. Now that I've guessed it, there's no need for me to keep hiding it. You are right, I do want to send you to reincarnation. However, I will divide your 3 souls and 7 souls into 2, let one of the 3 souls and 7 souls stay in the underworld, and the remaining 3 souls and 7 souls will be reincarnated. To put it simply, I will give you a tribulation as long as the time is right, the 2 halves of your souls will naturally merge into one. Emperor Fengdu sneered. Lu Su, you are so scheming. Splitting our souls in 2 is not weakening our strength in disguise. Then leaving half of the 3 souls and 7 souls here, isn't it because you want us to continue to maintain the order of the underworld? Emperor Fengdu understood my thoughts very clearly. I nodded and said, yes, that's what I planned. I admit it. Emperor Fengdu continued, what if we don't listen to what you say? I said calmly, if you don't listen to what I say, you will only end up in ashes. Of course, you are not stupid. You know my true purpose. Moreover, you must know that my approach is equivalent to asking you to go down to earth to experience, and experience when it's over, you will have great opportunities, and you will be the ones who profit by then. Emperor Fengdu said nothing. I continued, actually, I don't want to do this, but you have already forgotten your true intentions. If you are allowed to stay here in your prime, when I die, the whole world will be yours. Where is there room for the human race to survive? Compared to heaven, your underworld is the closest existence to the human world. Furthermore, when people die and enter the underworld, and then reincarnate, you will also gain supreme merit. The destruction of the human race will not do you any good. Emperor Fengdu, Yama, and the others fell into silence. Okay, I've said what needs to be said. Shouldn't you give me an answer? As soon as I finished speaking, Wei Zhang stood up and said to me, okay, I promise you. I nodded with satisfaction. Wei Zhang squeezed the secret with both hands, and his soul escaped from his body and disappeared directly into the list of gods. The 10 Yamas looked at each other and chose to sacrifice their souls. End of chapter. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1775. The 10 halls of Yama all expressed their opinions, and the ghost emperors of the 4 directions, the 6 cases Gonko, and the remaining gods also chose to sacrifice their souls. In the end, only Emperor Fengdu was left. I looked at Emperor Fengdu and asked, are you still stubbornly resisting? Emperor Fengdu looked at me quietly, remained silent for a while, and then said, Lu Su, your method is indeed feasible, but you underestimated the evil thoughts of the gods. We were prepared for the worst before you came here. I frowned, suddenly having a bad feeling in my heart. Emperor Fengdu continued, although the tombs of the gods have been sealed again, the souls of some gods still remain in the world. We have been defeated. I think the door to the 18th level of hell has been opened. I was secretly shocked. These gods are really crazy. It seems that I really underestimated the evil thoughts of the gods. Emperor Fengdu walked towards the list of gods step by step. Lu Su, you did win in this game, but the consequences of winning are very heavy. If you can't capture those evil ghosts before they escape from hell, then the world will face a catastrophe. By then, the human race will cease to exist, and all your efforts will be in vain. After speaking, Emperor Fengdu looked at me deeply, and then his soul left his body and directly entered the list of gods. I put away the list of gods in Ningzhou. Then he gave an order to all the Yin soldiers and Yin generals, I order you to go to the various exits of the underworld immediately. If you encounter any evil ghosts that are escaping, you must catch them. Don't let any of them escape. Yes. Countless Yin soldiers and Yin generals responded in unison. Immediately afterwards, these Yin soldiers and Yin generals left Fengdu city and attacked various parts of the underworld in a mighty manner. After finishing these things, I put away the Zuxian formation and sat down on the ground. After this battle, I have completely taken control of the underworld. What I have to do next is to catch those escaped evil spirits, and then send the gods in the underworld to reincarnation. Just when I was lying on the ground gasping for air, suddenly there was a faint sound of footsteps behind him. I turned around suddenly and saw that it was Su Tianxian. I struggled to stand up and ran towards Su Tianxian. Tianxian. I did it. When I came to Su Tianxian, I was like a child expecting praise. Su Tianxian looked at me with tenderness on her face. She stretched out her hand and gently wiped the sweat from my forehead. I knew my Xiaosu was the best. Su Tianxian praised softly. I smiled and said, Tianxian, are you injured in any way? Why are you looking so pale? Su Tianxian replied softly, I'm fine, I'm just a little weak. I'll get better after practicing for a while. I nodded, and Su Tianxian suddenly said to me, take me to meet Huaxiu. I was slightly startled and my mood suddenly became dull. Later, I took Su Tianxian to find Zhong Kui. When we arrived at the yard, Xiang Yi was guarding the door. When he saw me coming back, he asked, is everything settled? Well, it's solved. Xiang Yi gave me a thumbs up and said, Lu Su, I really belong to you. I just saw the Zuxian formation unfolding. I almost thought I was going to die in the formation, but I didn't expect you to be able to solve this matter so quickly. I forced a smile and said, are you kidding? How could I let you die? Where is Zhong Kui? How is he? Xiang Yi shook his head and replied, I don't know, he hasn't come out since you left. End of chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1776. I nodded and looked towards the room solemnly. Su Tianxian didn't say anything but gently held my hand. About 3 minutes later, the door opened and Zhong Kui walked out. I rushed up to meet her and asked, how is it? Has my sister's body been saved? Zhong Kui looked at me and hesitated to speak. Things are a bit complicated, but... Zhong Kui suddenly saw Su Tianxian next to me. He was slightly startled and quickly changed his words, Master Tianxian, please come in with me. Su Tianxian nodded and followed Zhong Kui towards the room. I also wanted to follow, but was stopped by Zhong Kui. Lu Su, just stay outside. But... I wanted to say I could be of some help. But when the words came to my lips, I swallowed them back. Zhong Kui closed the door, and Xiang Yi and I could only wait outside. Lu Su, you don't have to worry too much. Since Zhong Kui said there is a way, then he must have a way. I have never seen him talk nonsense in the long time I have known him. Xiang Yi spoke to comfort him. I nodded and replied, I hope. Xiang Yi pondered for a moment and then asked, what are you going to do next? I was slightly startled, then thought for a moment and said, now that the underworld is in my hands, I will split the souls of the major gods in the underworld into two, with half remaining in the underworld and half reincarnated. Then stop those escaping evil spirits. After that, I plan to go find Huo Qubing and return the Pajun star to the Palace of Life. After completing these things, I will go to the tomb of the gods. Xiang Yi nodded after hearing this and asked, Lu Su, have you ever thought about whether the gods of the underworld will still be under your control if they return to the underworld again? I smiled at Xiangyi and said, you don't have to worry about this matter. Whether it's Emperor Fengdu or Yama of the 10th Palace, their souls will be split into two by me, and their strength will be greatly reduced. They won't be able to lift them in a short time no matter what storm arises. As long as I am still here, I will still be the master of the underworld. What if you're gone? Xiangyi asked with worry on his face. There is nothing to worry about. If I die, there will be Zhao Mian and Tianqian. As long as they are still alive, they will definitely pose a threat to the underworld. They will not dare to create any right and wrong out of thin air. The reason why I do this is to arbitrarily determine yin and yang, so that the connection, balance, and strength gap between the underworld, the human world, and the sky are almost at the same level. The gods cannot kill and cannot be killed. But the evil thoughts in the hearts of the gods are too strong. If I can't think of a way to solve it, all my efforts in reincarnation will be in vain. At first I thought the purpose of my reincarnation was to kill gods. But now it seems that the meaning of my existence, the meaning of my eternal reincarnation, is just the arbitrary yin and yang of the ages. Indeed, there is no good solution at the moment. Xiangyi looked up at the sky and sighed, then looked at me and said, Lu Su, if possible, I really don't want you to die. If you die. Before Xiangyi finished speaking, I interrupted him. Does it mean that if I die, no one will give you ghost money? Xiangyi was startled, then laughed loudly and said, yes. After you die, no one will give me money. It is impossible to work part-time in this life. I can only live by deceit and abduction. End of chapter. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1777. I stood up and said to Xiangyi, I don't think I have a chance to give you the ghost money, because I don't have the time or energy to draw it, but there is something I think you will like. Xiangyi asked curiously, what? I asked Xiangyi to stand up, and then Xiangyi stood up. I kneaded the formula with my hands and muttered something in my mouth. After reciting the mantra, I suddenly picked up the sword and pointed it at the center of Xiangyi's eyebrows. The next second, the fingertips flashed with golden light. Xiangyi was stunned on the spot. This is what you have always wanted. I found it in the soul of Emperor Fengdu. I have to say that Emperor Fengdu is so cautious that he actually hid your soul in his soul. When Emperor Fengdu went to the list of gods, his soul was separated from Xiangyi's soul. I also took this opportunity to put away Xiangyi's soul. Xiangyi stood there for a long time, then looked at me. His eyes were red and his body was shaking wildly. Thank you, Lu Su. I waved my hand and said, no need to thank me, I will definitely do what I promised you. However, I am a little curious as to what your identity was in your last life. Xiangyi slumped down on the steps, and then let out a long sigh. My mind is very confused right now, and some miscellaneous memory fragments are running wildly in my mind. I understand Xiangyi's feelings on this matter. Because as my memory awakens, those dusty memories are raging in my mind like a tide. Sometimes I want to go through these memories, but the more I go through them, the more confusing they become. In the end I simply gave up. Just think about it when you encounter something. Since your head is so messed up, let's not talk about it. I don't particularly want to know. I teased Xiangyi. Xiangyi rolled his eyes, cursed me, and then said nothing. Time passed minute by minute, and soon, 10 minutes passed. Just when my heart was pounding, the door to the room was pushed open. Zhong Kui and Su Tianqian walked out. I quickly stood up to greet him. Zhong Kui said to me, your sister's body has been saved, but it must be hung with yin qi. You'd better put her in the 18th level of hell to be nourished by yin qi. I nodded and replied, okay, I understand. I looked at Su Tianqian. Su Tianxuan's expression remained the same as when he first entered the room, with no change. I asked, Tianxian, you? Su Tianxian waved his hand and said calmly, I'm fine, I just helped him perform a spell. I was slightly startled and didn't think much about it. Zhong Kui said to me at this time, okay, Lu Su, it's time for me to leave. But before I leave, I have a few words to tell you. Now that the gate to the 18th level of hell has been opened, the real threat to the world is not the evil ghosts, but the ghost kings imprisoned inside. These ghost kings are extremely advanced and have been around for thousands of years at least. Now you have taken away the souls of the gods of the underworld. You are the only one who can deal with them. I vowed to Zhong Kui, don't worry, as long as I'm here, I will never let those ghost kings escape from the underworld. Zhong Kui reached out and patted my shoulder. It's been a long time since I went to the human world to experience a disaster. I hope I can be reborn into a good family. Zhong Kui said to me half-jokingly. End of chapter. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1778. Zhong Kui is on my side. Moreover, Zhong Kui has always taken it as his mission to slay demons. This is true when you are alive, and it is also true after you become a god. Logically speaking, I don't need to let Zhong Kui reincarnate. However, since I decided to do this, I must be cautious. Because I don't have much time. If this cannot be done, the potential threat will be completely eradicated. Then it will be Su Tianxian and the others who will be in trouble. I called out the list of gods. Zhong Kui's soul and body split, and then he entered the list of gods. I put away the list of gods and looked into the room. I walked slowly into it. When I walked into the room, I immediately saw Huaxiu lying on the bed. Huaxiu's body has recovered. She lies on the bed and closes her eyes. She is like a sleeping beauty. Her beauty is breathtaking and incomparable. I came to sit next to Huaxiu, stretched out my hand and gently held her hand. Huaxiu's hands were extremely cold, her hands had always been like this. Sister! I shouted hoarsely, don't worry, I will definitely save you. Moreover, I will plant dandelions and let the flowers flow to your side. When you see the flowers, you will know how much I miss you. I gently put Huaxiu's hand next to his cheek. However, my brother may not be here when you wake up. Forgive me for breaking my promise, I can't stay with you all the time. I looked at Huaxiu for a long time, then stood up and said to Huaxiu, brother is gone. After saying that, I turned around and said to Xiangyi, I still have things to do, so I would like you to find an opportunity to send Huaxiu's body to the 18th level of hell. Xiangyi nodded and replied, don't worry, I will definitely complete this matter. I smiled, looked at Su Tianxian, and said, Tianxian, let's go. Su Tianxian hummed softly. Su Tianxian and I left the city lord's mansion and walked towards the outside of Fengdu city. On the way, Su Tianxian suddenly said to me, Xiao Su, don't worry too much, and don't be too sad. Whether it's Cai Dai, Huaxiu or Fengluan, they will all come back to you. I stopped, looked at Su Tianxian, and said, Tianxian, not only them, you will also be alive forever, right? Su Tianxian was startled, then nodded, and said, of course, I still want to grow old with you. I looked at Su Tianxian, and Su Tianxian looked at me. The two of us smiled at each other and did not continue talking on this topic. Su Tianxian took my hand and said softly, Xiao Su, after leaving the underworld, I'm afraid I will leave you for a while. I frowned, looked at Su Tianxian, and asked, where are you going? Su Tianxian explained, go to Yaokai. Yaokai? I asked doubtfully. Su Tianxian hummed. Well, it's Yaokai. Didn't I fail when I accepted the inheritance before? I originally thought that my end would be to be destroyed physically and mentally, but Long Ji told me that there is a place in Yaokai that might help me solve this matter. I thought about going and taking a look. When I heard this sentence, I was startled at first, and then asked with some surprise, Tianqian, is what you said true? Su Tianqian looked at me and replied calmly, when have I ever lied to you? I curled my lips and said, who says you haven't lied to me? You lied to me about the inheritance. End of chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1779. Su Tianqian looked embarrassed, and she subconsciously stuck out her tongue. This small gesture makes Su Tianqian even more cute. She raised her head and asked, aside from inheritance, have I lied to you about other things? I thought about it carefully and said, well, there really isn't one. Su Tianqian said seriously, isn't this enough? Except for inheritance, I won't lie to you about anything. Su Tianqian held my hand and said, Xiao Su, the method Long Ji said is very successful. As long as it succeeds, I won't have to separate from you, and I won't have to face separation or death. I was silent for a while and then replied, okay, I'll go with you. Su Tianqian shook his head slightly and replied, Xiao Su, you can't go with me. You still have things to do. Besides, I won't be gone for too long. I may come back in 7 or 8 months at most. I don't know whether what Su Tianqian said is true or false. But looking at Su Tianxuan's serious expression, I guess he didn't lie to me. Moreover, Su Tianxuan's current situation is very dangerous, although I have completely eliminated the hidden danger of the underworld. There are almost no forces in this world that can threaten Su Tianqian. In addition, Su Tianqian is so smart, she can definitely guess my plan to lie in the sky coffin. There was no way she could just watch me die. She will definitely choose to compete with me for the opportunity to sacrifice. Letting Su Tianqian leave now is also a good choice. I sighed slightly and said, well, since you said that, I can't say anything more. Su Tianqian looked at me with a complicated expression and said, Xiao Su, we don't have much time. We have to say goodbye this time. I don't know when we will see each other next time. I smiled at Su Tianqian and said, didn't you say that there is a way to solve the problem of your inheritance failure? After you solve it, you and I will stay together forever and never be separated. Su Tianqian blinked at me and asked, we will never be separated, then won't you get tired of it? I wanted to tease Su Tianqian, so I opened my mouth and said, what can I do? Do I have any other choice? The expression on Su Tianxuan's face condensed, and then a sullen look flashed in his eyes. Lu Su, I heard what you said, do you want to join me in wronging you again? I touched my chin and said coquettishly, my grievance is beyond mention at the moment. I just feel sorry for my handsome face. I don't know how many opportunities I have missed to get involved with women. Su Tianqian narrowed his eyes and looked at me. Her expression was that of anger. Okay. Su Tianqian said 3 good words in a row, shook off my hand and walked forward. Looking at Su Tianqian who turned on rampage, I couldn't help but shake my head and smile bitterly. Sure enough, no matter how noble and cool a woman is, she will act like a little woman in front of her lover. I quickly chased after him and held Su Tianqian in my arms. Su Tianqian struggled for a few times, and then stopped struggling. She must have known deep down that I was teasing her. Of course, the anger is also fake. Tianqian, it's been a long time since we. I didn't say anything further. Su Tianqian glanced at me, and then said lightly, don't even think about it. I was slightly startled and asked, Tianqian, do you know what I am referring to? Su Tianxuan's pretty face turned red and she whispered, how could I not be aware of the dirty thoughts in your head? End of chapter. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1780. Huh? Dirty thoughts? What I think is not dirty, right? I asked with some confusion. Su Tianxuan's pretty face turned red, and she murmured in a low voice, "You know in your heart whether you have thought of any dirty things. Anyway, I will never agree to it." I raised my eyebrows, knowing that Su Tianxian was overthinking. I said weakly, "Tianxian, what are you thinking? I mean, you and I haven't kissed or hugged each other for a long time. Are you thinking wrong?" Su Tianxian blushed even more after hearing what I said. She said coquettishly, What do you mean I'm thinking wrongly? Isn't kissing and hugging someone a hooligan?" Su Tianxuan's thoughts were revealed by me and she still kept speaking harshly. I couldn't help but said, "You are my wife. If I kiss you and hug you, are you acting like a hooligan?" Su Tianxian nodded very seriously and said, "Yes, any relationship that is not for the purpose of marriage is a hooligan." I stared at Su Tianxian with wide eyes, alone and messy in the wind. Not to mention, Su Tianxian is also very logical and has a very clear brain circuit. I took Su Tianxuan's hand and pulled him into my arms. "Xiao Su, what do you want to do?" Su Tianxian exclaimed. "What are you doing? You have already agreed to my proposal and received the certificate. Now there is only a wedding." Su Tianxian knew that she was in the wrong, so she murmured in a low voice, then you can't force me to come if I don't want to." I hummed softly. "Force it? I will force it today. What can you do to me?" After saying that, I put my arms around Su Tianxuan's slender waist and let his soft body press tightly against mine. "Xiao Su. You dare." Su Tianxian said coquettishly. I kissed Su Tianxuan's rosy mouth without any hesitation. Su Tianxian first stared wide-eyed and was shocked for a moment, then hugged her tightly and closed her eyes. The reason why she refused was not because she didn't want to. It was because she had been thinking wildly before and thought that what I meant was to do that thing. After she was exposed by me, she wanted to find a crack in the ground and crawl into it. That's why Su Tianxian said such quibbling words. Su Tianxian and I's tongues were intertwined. I suddenly discovered that Su Tianxian was more proactive and enthusiastic than I thought. She hugged me tightly, as if she wanted to rub me into her arms. In other words, she was afraid that I would disappear as soon as she let go. "I don't know how long it will take." Su Tianxian slowly pushed me away. Her face was red, her head lowered, and her brows were full of shame. "Excessive," Su Tianxian scolded in a sweet voice. I shrugged helplessly and said, "Where did I go too far? You are my wife, my certified wife, what's wrong with me kissing you? Let alone here, I dare to do it even in front of passers-by. Rogue." Su Tianxian raised his eyes and glared at me fiercely, then walked towards the outside of the block city. I quickly chased after him. "Don't walk so fast. Wait for me." Su Tianxian replied, "I don't want to wait for you." Although Su Tianxian said this, her steps slowed down. Later, Su Tianxian and I left Fengdu City. Arriving outside Fengdu City, I asked Su Tianxian, "Tianxian, all the evil ghosts in the 18 levels of hell have escaped. I guess there are evil ghosts everywhere in the underworld. Which direction do you think we should go?" Su Tianxian was silent for a moment and replied, "We don't need to take action against ordinary evil ghosts. We must capture those fleeing ghost kings." End of chapter.